So happy Monday and welcome to the Concord Public Free Library. We're already starting on a good note. My name is Matt Boger. I have the great honor of being one of many members of the Concord Democratic Town Committee. I am pleased to be here with our co-sponsors, the Democratic Town Committees of Acton, Carlisle, Lincoln, and Waltham. I do want to recognize that Weston, Hudson, and Woburn are also here. Really appreciate the lead in the bell. And Maynard is a co-sponsor. Thank you. If I didn't call you out, feel free to throw something at me and make sure they are represented. We are here to hear from the candidates who are running for Governor's Council, and we want to thank both of them for their time to be here for this forum. And I do want to thank, and Kelly came, so now we can officially start. Hello, Kelly. I do want to thank Diane Proctor for being the moderator. We're looking forward to a very informative and educational and pleasant forum to have conversations. There will be opportunities to have questions from the audience, and Diane will lead this as well. I do want to identify and educate the public on what the Governor's Council is, and to do that, I am so pleased to have Caroline come here and talk about that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Caroline Mingin, and I'm also a member of the Concord Town Democratic Committee meeting.
Want to have a quarter? Sorry.
Seriously?
Quarter? Yes. Quarter. Or a
Oh, wow, yes, we need a quarter.
Yeah, sorry.
Anybody have a coin?
Parking meter.
While people are looking, Caroline will do that. I apologize.
All right. Good evening, everyone. The Massachusetts Governor's Council, also known as the Executive Council, is composed of 8 individuals elected from districts and the Lieutenant Governor, who serves ex officio. The 8 councilors are elected from their respective districts every 2 years. The council meets weekly to record, advise, and consent on warrants for the state treasury, pardons and commutations, and recording advice and consent to gubernatorial appointments such as judges, clerk magistrates, public administrators, members of the parole board, appellate tax board, industrial accident board and industrial accident reviewing board, notaries, and justices of the peace.
Nicely done. Thank you very much. The adaptability of this committee is shown by us doing that coin chip right now. And without further ado, I want to thank Diane Proctor for being the moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. I mean, it doesn't feel like evening, does it? When the sun is still up and we're still all adjusting our awake times. I want to thank Matt. And I want to thank, who is the chairman, as you know, of the Democratic Town Committee, an extraordinary, if you didn't notice, a rather exuberant fellow, right? So he keeps us all on our toes. I want to thank Minuteman Media Network back there because they're filming all of this. And what that means is this will be a YouTube that you can pull up and share with people, which really makes a big difference in the long run because it'll be incredibly available and they're really first rate. I want to thank the library for this gorgeous facility and for making it available to us. And I want to thank the Democratic Town Committee for organizing this and putting it all together, to which I'm sure we're all deeply grateful. This is an extraordinary job, being a governor's council, and the joy and complexities these 2 women are willing to take on is something we all need to just take a moment to respect. It is an enormous job. And so for that reason, I think just remembering that either one of these women is willing to do it requires a certain kind of courage, a certain kind of determination, a certain kind of grace. And so I just want us to acknowledge that for a minute. So thank you both. Our timing tonight is going to be slightly different than a lot of these kinds of forums because one of the things we've noticed is that it's tempting when you give people just a minute or just 2 minutes to kind of run over the time, and then frustrations ensue and people get upset. So what we've done is give 3 minutes for each question. And we've also given the candidates questions in advance so that they can pair their topics, they can prepare what they're going to say, and keep it to 3 minutes. In the front here, we have Linda Ziffern, who's going to be holding up paddles to tell us when, to tell the candidates when it's 1 minute left, 30 minutes left, and stop. And at the sign of the top, we will hear, loudly please. Yes, we will hear that nice ding, and that means we're going to ask the candidates to adhere closely to those time constraints, out of respect for each other and certainly out of respect for everyone who's gathered here. We emphasize the importance of positive statements and strict adherence, obviously, as I've just suggested, to the timing. Should there be a need for rebuttal, I will hear that from either one of the candidates, and it's my discretion whether I think we have the time to exercise that rebuttal or what that would do just to the flow of things. We begin this evening with Marilyn Devaney. She's going to be actually Marilyn Petito Devaney. I love the Petito. We've just come back from Italy, so I've been practicing on Duolingo Italian, per favore.
Diane, it was that I go first this time.
I'm going to say that.
Okay,
yeah, no, I know that.
I'm sorry.
We have Marilyn Petito Devaney, who is the incumbent. She will speak second. We did a coin flip. She lives in Watertown and has been the sitting governor's council for, I think, 23 years. Is that
25.
25 years, excuse me, and thank you for that correction. However, she won't begin because she lost the time, the flip. And we will start with Mara Dolan. Mara Dolan is a Concordian. She is a public counselor, a public defender, has a large experience in this world as well. And so we'll start with Mara, and we will ask her 3 minutes to answer, to give us kind of an opening statement focusing on individual experiences and credentials. So Mara, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diane Proctor. Thank you also the Concord Democratic Town Committee for organizing this to the Democratic Town Committees of Acton, Carlisle, Lincoln, Maynard, and the Democratic City Committee of Waltham for co-sponsoring, and special thanks to Minuteman Media Network for being here tonight to make sure as many people as possible can see this important forum. I had a show back when it was called CCTV, so I know very well how many people watch local cable and what a difference it makes. So I really do thank you very much for being here. I'm Mara Dolan, and I'm running to be your governor's counselor. I've been a public defender for 17 years. I have worked all across Massachusetts in our juvenile courts, our district courts, and in our superior courts. I worked in large courts in gateway cities like Lawrence, Lowell, Worcester, and Springfield, smaller courts like Leominster and Fitchburg. And in fact, I got my start clerking for former Concord First Justice Paul McGill in Ayer District Court. Since the Supreme Court established the right to counsel to people who can't afford to hire their own attorney in 1963, we've had 52 governor's counselors, but not a single one has been a full-time public defender. It is perspective that is very badly needed and very badly overdue. But I haven't just been a public defender. I've also been a political communications professional. I got my start at CCTV, and then I started doing political commentary on NECN, GBH, Channel 5, radio stations. I had my own show on WCAP in Lowell. And then I was hired to be the communications director for the Senate president. I was also press secretary for the campaign of the Secretary of State and communications advisor to Ed Markey. And I also did internal communications for former state auditor Suzanne Bump. I've done communications work for congressional campaigns all across the country with an organization that I co-founded called Left of Center. The combination of my experience as a public defender, what I have learned about what's happening in our courts, coupled with my experience doing communications, will make me the most effective advocate for the values of the people of this district as your governor's counselor. We want more restorative justice, less punishment, less retribution. We want effective treatment for people with a substance use disorder instead of incarceration. We want juvenile justice reform. We want to make sure that we uphold abortion rights. For all those reasons, I'm running to be your governor's counselor, and I promise I will be the most effective governor's counselor you have ever had. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mara. I would ask us to hold our applause as each person speaks so that we don't use up our valuable time. That way, just let's hold our applause. After Marilyn speaks, we can applaud once, just so there's equal applause. But then after that, let's not do so, okay? Thank you very much. And we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers after they've answered our, established questions, okay? Marilyn.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for this opportunity to be here tonight to speak with you. I ran for Governor's Council after my friend begged a judge on 8 separate occasions to put her abusive boyfriend in jail. The judge told her, "You're wasting my time, and you're wasting the court's time." A week later, my friend was dead. She was murdered by her boyfriend. I vowed then to run for this office, to reform the system, and to be the counselor who will fight for justice for you and your families. I fought for reform, and I succeeded. I successfully stopped judicial nominees from donating to governor's councils, governor, lieutenant governor, which prior to that time, they were giving right up until they voted. My work resulted in an executive order from all governors, including Governor Healy, to ban this corrupt practice upon their applying. I fought successfully after the councils on the phone stopped our hearings on YouTube going out to the public. I didn't do it alone. I got support from the ACLU, MassPIRG, and other progressive organizations. It's not always popular to do the right thing. My extensive reform efforts have made the judiciary better, less biased, and more qualified, giving you a better chance for justice. I'm proud to fight for diversity in judicial appointments and fight against the racial, gender, and sexual orientation discrimination in our courts. Even though I was inspired by the court's failure resulting in my friend's murder, I remain compassionate about the treatment of criminal offenders. I continue to go out into prisons and advocate for commutations, working with our supportive governor. For example, the Pros Board composition had been in violation when I first was elected. Violation of the state laws back to Governor Dukakis, 30 years. It consisted of law enforcement and prosecutors who weren't giving people a second chance even when it was deserved. I successfully worked with governors to bring the parole board into compliance. Now the parole board has a social worker. We have a forensic psychologist and a substance abuse expert. The quality of these decisions regarding reentry has vastly improved. I visit the prisons. I'm meeting these inmates who have been wrongly convicted of unfair sentencing because of the prejudice in the courts.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop,
I'm
but thank
sorry.
you. You're going to be the first person to speak in the next one, so if there's something
Yeah,
you'd like
I'm
to add
sorry.
at the
I
end.
talk too slow, I guess.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Now, no more applause, right? We all agree? Yes? Okay, all right. Marilyn, please tell us why you are running for this position.
Well,
And again, you have 3 minutes.
okay. My interest was because of my friend, but I want to bring justice to people in prisons. I want to bring it closer to you. We didn't have a website, and now you know when the governor has appointed someone and when we're having a hearing. I fought for reform, and changes have come. I prohibited members of the Judicial Nominating Committee from applying to judgeships for a certain period, and most recently joined forces that we restored our hearings. However, there is a lot more to do, and my track record and my experience and my relationship with this governor is getting it done. And I love representing you. And I'm the only full-time. I have met with over 1,000, every single person from industrial accident board to judge. This isn't a second job. We have lawyers, and we've had people that were, public defenders. Counselor Judenville was a public defender. But the point is that we need someone that's there for you full-time, and transparency. I've got a track record, and people know. I asked for reform, and I got it. And I'm going to continue with your support to work with this governor, because she's supporting my advocacy to have these people that are wrongly sentenced to have the right for release, which they deserve. I'm proud to vote for the very first national pardon for people who had possession of marijuana. I believe in second chances. When I vote for the parole board, I want to make sure that they believe in second chances. On the industrial accident board, I want to make sure that that judge has empathy for that person, because that's an injured worker who wants to put food on the table. This is what I'm about. I'm here for you. Okay? We have lawyers, and they're allowed to go before by law, to go before the judges they vote on. I have no conflict of interest voting for attorneys. I'm there for you. So I'm asking if you support me, I'll continue. I'll continue working with this wonderful governor. I'm over the moon with this governor. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for adhering to the time. Mara.
Thank you so much. I don't have a conflict either. I'm not corrupt. I've been a public defender for 17 years, and I would never betray my clients for voting to confirm someone who would not uphold equal justice under the law. I think my experience with judges is an asset. I know how they think, I know how they operate, and I know what they're not doing right. You know, when I was in law school over 20 years ago, one of my professors said, our courts are about 20 years behind the times. Based on what I've seen, we're farther behind than that. And what I see in our courts is being done by judges that were voted for by my opponent for the last 25 years. And it's not pretty. Here's what I see. I see substance use disorder treated as a crime. The science is very clear. When someone is in relapse, the single worst thing that we can do is incarcerate them. It's isolation, it's denial of medication-assisted treatment, it's loss of employment, it's loss of housing, it's separation from family and community. Yet though relapse itself is not a crime, it can be a condition of release, either a bail condition or a probation condition or a parole condition. And most of the time, judges take people into custody for relapse. And by take into custody, I mean send them to jail. These are judges she voted to confirm. As your governor's counselor, I will make sure that all nominees understand the science of addiction and know how to work to support recovery. This is also a disability rights issue. Substance use disorder is a disability. Addiction is a chronic, recurring brain disorder that does not respond to negative treatment. If suffering cured addiction, no one would have one. And that's what judges are doing all the time. I support juvenile justice reform. The Supreme Judicial Court recently made us the first state in the country to hold that a sentence of life without the possibility of parole is unconstitutional for those under 18. They cited the science of brain development. They were right. I've represented hundreds and hundreds of children in our juvenile courts. They're right. Yet my opponent denies the science of brain development. She called it just pages in a book. And she also said our juvenile courts are just fine the way they are. You can find the videos on my YouTube channel, Mara Dolan for Governor's Council. I completely disagree. I'll use my position as your governor's counselor and my communication skills to advocate for juvenile justice reform. And though I hate to rebut an opening, I do want to quickly say her statement about reforming the parole board is incorrect. I have a statement from former governor's counselor Michael Albano, who also served as acting chair of the parole board. He said the membership of the board has a standing legislative history that mandates diversity. I highly doubt Governors Cellucci, Swift, Romney, Patrick, Baker, and Healy, along with the governor's council, would have violated the law by nominating and confirming members outside the established criteria.
Thank you so much, Mara. And you will have a chance to continue if you wish, because you're next. What do you perceive as the strengths of the present Governor's Council, and how would you contribute to those strengths?
Well, the Governor's Council, for those of you who don't know, is the oldest deliberative body in the world. It just turned 395 years old. And I think it's a great system for judicial appointments. As a former legislative staffer, I can tell you from experience, I don't think turning these decisions over to the legislature is a good idea. It would significantly slow down the process, and we're already having a problem. There's a story in Mass Lawyers Weekly this week about the number of vacancies in our superior courts. It's 1 out of 7 seats is open. Cases are taking much too long to be heard and to be resolved. Justice delayed is justice denied. So slowing down the process is a terrible, terrible idea. I think the Judicial Nominating Commission is a terrific vetting system, and it helps ensure that our candidates are very qualified before they're nominated. And I think that whatever shortcomings there are to the Governor's Council, the solution is to elect the best people to serve, which is why I'm running. I would amplify the strengths of the Governor's Council by keeping the voters of this district informed about their work, by having meetings throughout the district to meet with constituents so that they understand what's happening in the Governor's Council, and also having meetings to help people who are interested in applying understand the process so that we get the best possible pool of applicants. One of the strengths of the Governor's Council is that it is, in fact, the gateway to an entire branch of government. It's the judicial branch of government. You don't get in without passing through the Governor's Council. Governor's councilors are the most consequential, least known elected officials, which is why it's so important for folks to know what the work of the council is, which is why, as your governor's counselor, I will continue to do what I've been doing with this campaign, which is educate people about the work and, frankly, getting people really excited about it. Because there was a story in Commonwealth Beacon last week saying, this is the hottest race on the ticket in most of the district. That's because people care about the Governor's Council. That's because I've been working my tail off, meeting with people all across the district to make sure they understand. And let me tell you, when I say to people this simple sentence, if you care who our judges are, you need to care who your Governor's counselor is. Every single person says yes, and they want to know more. I'll keep doing that as your Governor's counselor.
Thank you so much, Mara. Marilyn, the same question. What do you perceive as the strengths of the present Governor's Council, and how would you contribute to those strengths?
Well, the real strength of the Governor's Council is it's the only body that is the checks and balances for the governor. If they vote no, then that person doesn't get that position. I am a believer in public participation, and I have been outspoken, and I have the reputation as a reformer. And I often receive tips from the public about nominees and feedback from lawyers, which I investigate and act upon. I pride myself in meeting with every nominee, over 1,000, and investigate. And I have never missed a hearing, just one vote, except when I buried my husband, a Watertown firefighter. I fought for better transparency of the process by bucking the system that I think you deserve to see our hearings. And if you don't think I got, that really came back to me on that because it's not popular. But I want to tell you what I do. I love this administration, and I've been waiting for 8 years for this. And I held a public forum a month ago, and it was a packed hall, because I want people out there, lawyers should know, this is a wonderful administration. It's not political insiders anymore. And I want you to know the process. And I had judges, and I had people from the governor's office, and I had the chair of the Judicial Nominating Committee. So these people know what the process is, how they apply with the Judicial Nominating Committee, and what it's all consists of, and to know it's not closed anymore. Like Westboro, we got a judge and a clerk magistrate that were co-coaches for Lieutenant Governor Polito. Those days are gone, and I am so happy working with this governor that we're having people that are qualified. I won't vote for legislators that are not qualified. I won't vote for people on my council. If I'm voting for a clerk magistrate and a judge, How can we take the job? But they are. In my administration, in my tenure, we've had a judge, someone that became a judge that was clerk magistrate, and 2 clerk magistrates. It's not popular to do the right thing. I can't stress that, but I'm working for you, and I'm asking for your support to let me continue. Let me get these people that are wrongly convicted. Let me stop the racial discrimination. I go to drug courts. I go to drug graduations. I go to the parole board. I know who's serving us, and I'm trying to have the best for you, and I welcome your calls. I come out to the district, but I'm telling you, that forum, and I'll have more, I want people to know this is an open administration. It's not going to be the next door neighbor of the governor. Those days are gone, and I waited 8 years for this, and I hope you'll let me continue to work for you.
Thank you so much.
I did want to rebut.
This is at the discretion of the moderator, and you would like to make a rebuttal, Mara?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I think it's misleading for the incumbent to portray herself as a great promoter of public information in the Governor's Council. Any elected official needs to be able to communicate effectively across all platforms. That forum that she held a month ago, I know about it, but I bet nobody else in this room does. It was in State House News. She put it on her Facebook page. She does not use Twitter. She does not use Instagram. She does not know how to use Zoom. We had a forum the other week in Boston that could not go forward because she could not figure out how to use Zoom. As a person, fine, no problem. But as an elected official, you have to be able to communicate effectively across all platforms, and she has not demonstrated the ability to do that. Thank you.
Marilyn, do you have a response?
Am I supposed to respond to that?
You can. You have a minute.
I'm not a blogger. I'm not a political machine, publicity machine. She knows it. I don't. But I do know that my opponent is in trouble because she's telling us in one time that she is a public defender, but in the state ethics, which is under oath that we have to fill out that financial disclosure, she said that she's a private attorney. So which is she? And she got $900 for going to court, working for public agency, but she never reported it. She's in violation of the state ethics, which is under pain of penalty. It's under oath when you take that. So so I'm not a blogger. So I'm sorry.
I think we'll give Mara 1 minute to respond to that.
Thank you. This is a charge that she's been making repeatedly, that I am somehow not a public defender, thereby offending all the public defenders who work the way that I do. My clients do not pay for my services. They do not pay me for my services. I am, in fact, a public defender. In fact, in that article at Commonwealth Beacon that came out last week, because she'd made this frankly ridiculous charge, they called the Committee for Public Counsel Services and said, is Mara Dolan a public defender? And they said, yes, she is. So I think that really should end the discussion.
Can I rebut?
And yes, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, I did call them and the agency, and they told me that she was not a public defender, but that they give her cases and she works on it. And so I'm just saying that in her state ethics, she didn't say that. She said she wasn't a public defender. She was a private attorney, but she's in violation that she didn't report that she got $900 from the it's a state agency, and they gave her some cases, and that's what she made, but she didn't report it. It's in violation. That is really, you can be in trouble,
Okay,
really.
well, I think we'll stop that right there, and we'll go on to the next
I have
question.
no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah. So, Marilyn, what do you perceive as concerns about the present Governor's Council, and how would you address those concerns?
Well, I think we need an open meeting law. And I have talked with the governor, and she agrees with me. And when I was a city councilor, we were under the open meeting law. And it's right, because under an open meeting law, the rules apply that the majority can't meet together, okay? They can't be on the phone together. Now, my council voted on the phone to stop the hearings out for you, okay? We had an open meeting law, they wouldn't be able to do that. I have brought this attention to Governor Healy, as I said, and she agrees with me. And so I'm hoping that, I don't know what the expectations are going to be for that, but I think we really need an open meeting law. Now, the other thing is the process of how we vote. We are given one person, we don't know how many, we don't know how many were interviewed, we don't know how many rejected, we have one person. So you know what the big authority I have is to vote yes or no. That's all. And we vote on people, just people. And so I would like to see, not the names of the people that are applying, but I'd like to see the qualifications of the people who applied. So that when I'm voting for that person, I know this is the best person, best qualified, has compassion, has all the qualifications that we're looking for. But I don't know that. I don't know that. So that's something that I think should be changed. So those are the two things that I would like to say. Yeah, I have addressed a lot of the concerns, I think, that we never had a website. No one knew when there was a hearing. No one knew the Governor's Council existed. No one knew who the governor was appointing or when we were going to have a hearing. Now we have a website. And then I stopped the contributions coming in. When I saw that questionnaire and all the money was given, this is when I first started, money was given to everybody. I was sitting there right in time. They voted for them, and they were giving money. So I've done a lot of those things, but I think the most important thing is that we have to have some kind of, the council has to have a little bit more to know who applied, not the names, but let's know if this is the most qualified are the people that they interviewed, so that we can judge that person better who comes before us. So it's quite a thing. That's going to be a challenge.
Thank you. Mara, the same question to you. What do you perceive as concerns about the present Governor's Council, and how would you address those concerns?
Well, the biggest concern that I have is a failure to vet. That the issues that I've talked about were clearly not screening judges to make sure that they will fight systemic racism. Our racial imbalances, our systemic racism inequities in our courts are below the national average. My opponent did not properly vet a nominee who had donated repeatedly to anti-choice organizations, was asked if she supported the right to choose, would not say that she would. And when the council reconvened to vote on the nomination, one of the other councilors, Terry Kennedy, stood up and said he was so concerned that she would not say that she supports the right to choose that he asked her personally if she would recuse herself, at least, from abortion cases. And because she would not say that she would, he would vote no. My opponent, immediately afterward, said, please send us more. You can find the video on my YouTube channel. There is no question that this happened. But I have a much more serious example of a failure to vet, and I want you to know that I take no joy in this. I wish that my opponent would only speak accurately about her record and about me, but because she does not, I need to bring these things up. There was a judge named Mark Newman, who I appeared before hundreds of times in Lawrence Juvenile Court. And if that name does not ring a bell, it will shortly. He is the judge who returned Harmony Montgomery to the custody of her father over the objections of DCF. My opponent voted to confirm him. And there is no question that he was not properly vetted. If you look at other juvenile court nominees that year, their witnesses were chiefs of parole, the head of the Juvenile Bar Association, experienced attorneys who really understood our juvenile courts. Mark Newman's witnesses were a town manager from New Hampshire, a couple of executive directors from nonprofits, one attorney who's still practicing law, but if you look on his website, there is no reference to juvenile law. Failure to vet is the biggest problem with the Governor's Council. We are not vetting. Our opponent is not vetting people in the way that she should. And she will tell you that she does this full time. And she will tell you that she meets individually with all the nominees. And that's terrific. But an individual meeting is not enough. The question is not how much you're working, but how effectively you're working. As your governor's counselor, I will work much more effectively in vetting nominees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mara, you actually start the next question, which in some ways.
Excuse me.
Oh, excuse me.
I couldn't quite hear what the objection was, what you were saying about, what was it? About someone, a nominee?
I'm sorry, you have to look at the tape to hear that.
I don't, well, I thought maybe I could address it if I knew what the nominee, what was about.
Could you name the name of the nominee for us?
There are multiple nominees. I was speaking specifically about Mark Newen, but I also think this is another issue, and I've seen this in other debates, that she has these difficulties.
Okay, well, we hope you will listen carefully
Yes.
going forward, and we will try to make sure that the sound system is working. Can you hear well? And our sound
I
system?
guess, I don't know,
Okay.
I guess she talked a little fast, and I really didn't catch that.
Okay,
but
well,
anyway.
we'll go forward, and I hope hope the sound system will work effectively for you to be able to hear well. What qualities, Mara, would you look for in judicial candidates? You've just been addressing that question, so let's look at it directly.
Yes, it's a slightly different question than I had. I had different positions. Which of these do you feel your background? Was that? I just want to make sure the right question.
Okay, what qualities do you look for in judicial candidates? That's the question that we
Got it,
wrote.
okay. Well, I have a number of criteria.
That's the next question.
Oh, that's the next question, okay.
Okay.
I do have a number of criteria. They have to understand the science of addiction and know how to work to support recovery. They have to be ready, willing, and able to fight systemic racism with every tool that the law allows. They have to be absolutely, completely, and totally 100% pro-choice, as I am. And by the way, I think Joe Biden's going to win. But if he doesn't, we are going to need the strongest, toughest, most determined, most vigilant governor's counselor that we can get to protect your rights in a time when our federal courts are taking away our rights. We have got to make sure that our state courts will uphold them. I'm also really concerned about juvenile justice. My opponent asked a recent juvenile court nominee if she believed in the science of brain development. I want you all to know that was a totally inappropriate question. Both the Supreme Judicial Court and the Supreme Court of the United States have repeatedly found in cases that the science of brain development in juveniles was real and required our courts to uphold that. So she was in essence asking a nominee if they would not uphold the law. I will, of course, never do that. Everything that I saw working with kids in our juvenile courts tells me that the science is right. They don't understand things as well as emerging adults, and emerging adults don't understand things as well as adults do. So I will make sure that all nominees understand that, and that they don't treat children the way that they would treat an adult. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn, the same question to you.
Well, I'd first like to, I'd like to rebut that question that she said about.
I think you have to ask me permission to do that first.
Oh, all right.
Okay, and you've got the next, you have the next 3 minutes, so maybe you can bring that up in your response to what qualities would you look for in judicial candidates?
Well, first of all, they have to be qualified, they have to be experienced, they have to be compassionate, they have to have empathy. And I think that I have vetted, I know I vetted over 1,000, and no one has ever taken the time as I have to investigate and vet and meet with the people. And I'm proud of that. As far as this talking about people going before a judge and talking about that case where she was, I don't know, she was against abortion. Well, the point is, 5 of us voted for that woman. She was so qualified. But the point is that my opponent should know she's a lawyer. Legally, Canon 2 mandates that if you're a judge and you have a bias in that case before you, you are mandated to recuse yourself. But she's not saying that. But as far as the brain developmental 25, okay. But I think everyone should be accountable. If you're 24 and you go into a school and you kill little children, you've got to be accountable. And so I think that's what we're talking about. You know, you can say the brain development is fully developed at 25, but we have to hold each of those people responsible, whether they're 23, 21, 22, whatever. And that's all my point in making that. And so I stand by that. It's accountability for people who have, according to their age, accountability for the crimes that they have committed. So that would be my answer. But I mean, I am very upset that my opponent, this is the case, that she accused 2 police officers of being racist. And the judge gave it time and time again, over a year, and she couldn't find one bit of prejudice, of racism in these 2 men. And she was violating the court, she was fined. And this is the 13-page that has it. Do you want someone like that to be choosing judges who she's in contempt of court? I don't think so. And if anyone sees this, I got a lot of copies. 13 pages, all right?
I'd like to rebut.
I think we'll give you a minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. I was never held in contempt. I think she, this is where her lack of legal experience shows that she really does not understand what that case was about. And can you hear me now? Okay. Not too well? How's that? Is that better? Okay, that's good. All right. No, this is clearly where her lack of legal experience comes in. She does not understand what that case was about. I was endorsed by the State Police Association of Massachusetts, so I think that if they support me, that's good enough. And I guess that I was found in contempt is completely false. And this is what she does every time she has an opponent, by the way. She makes false accusations against them. She once distributed literature with false accusations against opponent and signed other governors, councilors' names to it without their knowledge or their consent.
Never.
We don't, and I have copies of that if anybody wants to see those. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to?
She's going to be in trouble because I'm going to be suing her. I want you to know that publicly. I'm suing her. This has gone too much. She's even said I hit someone over her head with a curling iron. So it's enough.
Okay.
No. If you don't know the facts, so don't laugh at me. Please don't laugh at me. That really hurts me when you laugh at me.
Okay, well, let's go forward, and thank you very much. Marilyn, you get the first response to this question. We know the Governor's Council approves many different appointments, including clerk magistrates, public administrators, members of the parole board, notaries, appellate tax board, industrial accident and review board, and justices of the peace. They also approve and disapprove pardons and commutations. For which of these approvals do you feel your background or talents will allow you to make significant discernments, and by what criteria do you hope to vet the nominee?
I've developed a skill set in my 25 years as a governor's counselor. Mostly I have built it on my love of people and that I'm a good listener. I'm a people person, I know people say that, but I started out as a Watertown counselor over 20 years, and I was involved in my community. The local paper chose me as Woman of the Century for my contributions to the council. And I was mostly pleased by the Commission on Disability that I served 22 years, that they recognized me. Those are the things that I hold dear. I listen to the public. I testify in legislature. I care about people. I care about minimum wages and things that really are not in my realm, but I am out there and I stand out with people protesting. And I listen to the public and their concerns. And I listen to lawyers who want reforms and I act on it. I listen to people who come forward to oppose nominees and treat them with respect and dignity. I decided early on to personally meet with every single nominee and ask them probing questions in lengthy personal interviews. I'm fearless. I stand up to the administration when necessary, and I always stand up for the public. I do so even though it made me a target. Politics is an ugly business, and you have to be tough to endure the blowback. It is not popular to fight the system, but I don't mind as long as I am delivering a better justice system for the public. I've already described what I look for in nominees, but I'll share with you, I watch out for political connections. I don't think that politically connected people should get a leg up with more qualified candidates. That's why I fought to prohibit donations from nominees. Also, I don't like that legislators take jobs that they're not qualified for and general vote against them. I also don't like it when people hide things from us or lie on their applications, which are filed under oath, and vote against them. I look for people with integrity, and I believe that I am a very good judge of character.
Thank you very much. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Diane.
Mara?
I think it's an excellent question. Not enough attention is paid to clerk magistrates. Clerk magistrates are the administrators of the entire court in which they serve. And they also preside over what are called probable cause hearings, where if there's a question as to whether probable cause exists to believe that a crime has been committed, it's the clerk magistrate who makes that decision. Those are generally held in little rooms off to the side. We don't really know what happens there. So when a clerk magistrate makes a decision, we don't know why they found probable cause or didn't find probable cause. So in some ways, we have to be even more careful with our clerk magistrates than we do with judges who, after all, operate in open court, and it's all recorded. And by the way, you can hear any hearing anytime you want to. The other issue with clerk magistrates that's really important is that though our state judges have a mandatory retirement age of 70, clerk magistrates do not have a mandatory retirement age. We have many clerk magistrates who are working well into their 80s, and I think we have at least one who's in their 90s. I think that issue needs to be revisited, but it just underscores how incredibly important clerk magistrates are. And since I have a little time left, I just want to respond to my opponent's view that politics is an ugly business and you have to be tough to endure the blowback. I don't see it that way at all. Policy is my love language, and politics is how you get there. I actually think it's a very beautiful thing. And I want you to know I don't have a tough bone in my body, but I am incredibly strong. And that's what you need to be in order to do any job that you're elected to do. So I'm not worried about being sued. Everything I've ever said about her record is accurate, and it's documented. I'll just keep at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you. We now have 10 minutes, and we're going to ask the timers to kind of watch this for us. 10 minutes for people to ask questions. I ask that you be succinct, brief. This is not a time for platforms. It's a time for succinct and brief comments.
Do we have a closing statement?
That's at the end. We're going to have questions and then a closing statement.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay. I mean, that's the plan.
3 minutes for the answers or 1 minute for the answers from the audience?
Well, we'll play it by ear. Mostly we have 10 minutes. Okay, let me start right here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stand up. I'm more comfortable that way. Hi. Underneath these unassuming clothes, I am a probate attorney.
Ah.
And one thing I have heard neither of you speak to is the fact that the probate side of the probate and family court has become the ugly stepchild of the court system. We don't need somebody necessarily knows addiction. What we need is somebody who understands incapacity, finance, tax, interfamily relations. Mr. Boehne, I've never heard of you pushing the Governor's Council to move on specifically attorneys with probate litigation experience. I know of somebody who was up, didn't get passed up to the Governor's Council. She would have been damn good.
Okay.
Ms. Nolan, same thing. You need to speak to those of us who will never be in a criminal court, but will certainly have impact with the probate courts.
Thank you.
Do
That's-
we have a quick response?
Yeah,
And
the
we'll go to
quick
Mara
response
first, and-
is that I've heard this from a number of people. My area of expertise is obviously as a public defender is in our criminal courts, but I do know there are significant issues in our probate and family courts. And so I appreciate all the issues that you raised, and we have to elevate those positions and because it is incredibly important, because absolutely many people are never charged with a crime, but a lot of people are in our probate and family courts. We don't, for one thing, we don't have enough judges there. And for another thing, I know there are a lot of issues around how custody and visitation decisions are made. We need to make sure that nominees are ready, willing, and able to make those decisions truly in the best interest of the child.
We'll give each responder 1 minute to respond. Marilyn, do you have
The
something you'd like
question
to
is
say?
about, you're asking, would you just phrase that a little closer as far as you want people, the probate,
Sure. What I'm looking for in a probate judge, which Ms. Dolan, I think you got off in the wrong direction there, is somebody with specific probate experience, somebody who understands the Uniform Probate Code, the Uniform Trust Code, incapacity issues, tax issues that affect estates and so forth. This is, for those of us who practice on that side of the registry, this is huge. We go in front of judges who have no bloody idea what we're talking about.
Do you have a response, Marilyn?
No, I agree
You
with
have
you.
1 minute. Okay.
I agree with you. I mean, we've had people go to court and they've never, into a court and they've never had any criminal cases, but let's talk about probate. I'm very concerned about it. And I want to make sure that that person knows about removal and about, there's so many things that are coming up now that judges never had before. We have same-sex marriages when they divorce. They have to think about all of these things. What is fair for that child? I believe in joint custody. There's a lot of things that I'm looking for, but I have no ability to choose. And that's why I'm saying I would like it to change so we could see the qualifications of these people and include those things that you're saying. And then we know we're getting the best person that they have interviewed. And that's all, that's all I'm looking for. But I'd like to talk with you later, too. I'm so glad
Yes,
you're
I
here.
hope you will, because I feel that the question was not as thoroughly answered as you might have hoped. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir. We'll try to get to everybody.
Stephen Wagner from Maynard. I'm not speaking for the Maynard Town Committee, but as someone who has actually testified on behalf of a judicial nominee 20 years ago, when Professor Charles Freed of Harvard Law School was nominated to the Supreme Judicial Court by Bill Weld, who had been one of his students and knew his familiarity with all areas of the law. I attended the whole hearing, and I'll say I'm surprised that Councilor Devaney is in favor of an open meeting law. I would be too for the Governor's Council. I appreciate her efforts to interview people, but I'm not sure whether a private interview substitutes for open questions that the other members of the council and the public can hear at one of the formal sessions.
Thank you very much. That's a good question. Does either of you have a
That's for me.
response?
I include what I talk with privately. I bring that to my counselors and ask those questions to that person. And I even say that. We talked about this. Tell us about it. We talked about this case. Tell us about that case. So I do all the time. I really do. But, I think honesty is very important to have in a governor's council. I am a Democrat, and I have voted all the time for Democrats. I have Mara Dolan's public record, and she was unenrolled for many years. And in 2000, she voted in the Republican primary. So, I mean, you have to have honesty. I have copies, you can all see it. I didn't make this up, okay? So she talks about pro-choice. Well, guess what? That was McCain and it was Bush. So she voted for an anti-abortion governor. So, and you can see this, she was unenrolled
Okay, excuse me, I think the minute is up. Mara, do you have a minute to respond?
I do. She's been raising this issue for 2 years. My voter file is inaccurate. I would never have voted for a Republican in the 2000 primary. In fact, I got two friends here I was very close with in the year 2000. Would I ever have voted for George W. Bush? Say it loud and proud. Never. No, 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 no.
Take it?
Absolutely not. And I actually know other people who have inaccurate voter files, and there's unfortunately no way to fix it. But no, I didn't do that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
have another question in brief and succinct. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Glenn Cody from Acton. What reforms do you believe are needed in juvenile and young adult sentencing?
Could you say the question again slowly?
You did say brief and succinct,
Yes,
so I took
was
that a little too
pretty
far.
succinct. Yeah, I wasn't sure which one of us you wanted to answer first, so.
Mara,
Okay, well, having
Well-
represented hundreds and hundreds of children in our juvenile courts, the purpose of the juvenile court is different from the purpose of the district and superior courts. The idea is to rehabilitate. It's much less punitive. So I think that's the right purpose. I always felt that, my clients, though they may have said that they understood what was going on, they may have believed that they understood what was going on, they didn't necessarily. And I felt that the most important message that we could get to these kids was that the reason that they were having difficulties was that they were not getting the support that they needed. So I think sentences in juvenile court should really be about getting these children the support they need, not punishing them.
Marilyn, do you have another response to that?
Yes, I will not vote for anyone for juvenile court unless they've had a dedicated legal years working in the juvenile court. And I even went to Mitt Romney when someone was before us for juvenile court. And I went into his office and I said, you have to withdraw this man. And I told him why. This man did not have experience in the juvenile court that I was looking for. And guess what? He withdrew him. Withdrew him.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting this. This was really great. Thanks both candidates for being here and helping educate us. I'm a fundraiser. I'm a little bit of a data nerd, and I've done a lot of political fundraising. So my question is, as a full-time counselor, how come you're not doing more fundraising? You're doing mostly you're self-funding your campaigns.
Well, I don't owe lawyers who want to be judges.
No, well, I'm looking at your, again, $91,000 you've self-funded since 2006. 2 years ago, it was an election year, and you only had 2 PAC gifts and 1 donor. So I'm just curious as to, why not reach out to your constituents? We're not all lawyers. We're not all six-figure figs. You're self-funding your...
I find it very hard to ask for people, and I don't want people to give me money because I have seen $500 donations to counselors, and they come up, the next year and they become a judge. That's not my thing. And so, no, I agree with you, but I started off with $14,000 on this job. I didn't do it for the money. I never would do it. It doesn't pay that much now. But I believe in it, and I believe in my heart that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm working hard, and I don't think it has anything to do with fundraising. I'm not a fundraiser. I'm not a blogger. I mean, so accuse me of that. That's what I am. I'm sorry. But I have gone personal loans to run. How many people do that? Isn't that crazy? But I do. And my friends think I'm crazy too. But I love what I do. I love it. 14,000. If it was still 14,000, I'd still be there. I'm not looking for something else. My opponent was on 2 ballots the same day.
I'm afraid you have to stop now.
She was voted in 2
Excuse me, I
places
said
the same
please stop.
day.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Mara?
thank you.
Again, I was not on 2 ballots on the same day. This has been rebutted repeatedly. I'm glad that you asked the question about finances. It is simply disingenuous of my opponent to say that she doesn't fundraise because she doesn't like to ask people for money. She has asked people for money. They've said no. I've asked people for money, and they've said yes. because they know we need change. Yes,
she know that?
she's a self-funded candidate and I am not. She brags about doing this job full-time, a job that pays $36,500 a year. Good for her that she can afford to live on that. I cannot, and most people cannot. And if we only elect people who can afford to live on $36,500 a year, the candidate pool will be very small and not very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a question here. Yes? Did you have a question?
Oh, I just had a clarification question.
Okay, clarification.
Yeah. At one point, Marilyn, you said the only thing you guys have the opportunity to do is say yes or no. Do you get back, I mean, do you guys discuss background of the judges? Do you
I'm
get
sorry,
any?
I'm sorry. Yes or no, I didn't catch after that.
Do you guys get background information on judges so you can discuss amongst yourselves whether you think that would be an appropriate candidate? I don't know how it works, I'm asking.
She's asking a process question.
There we go, the open meeting law. I mean, we wouldn't be able to, talk about it and get together and is that what you mean?
That means you don't talk unless you have an open meeting?
No, they have a questionnaire that they fill out. And it's very extensive, the questionnaire, and it asks them, and they put all of their cases, and they put their experience and what they have done. I look for pro bono. I love people who care, and especially if they can't afford, a lawyer, and they do that kind of thing. We do get a questionnaire. We have a questionnaire. And in our questionnaire, that's where we find out if they've given donations. And that's when I found out when I first got elected that everybody around me was getting money from this nominee right up to the vote. Is that what you mean? We do. We have a questionnaire, but any...
No, I don't mean a piece of paper. I want to know if the Governor's Council discusses amongst their...
The question is, when does the Governor's Council deliberate on each of the candidates that come forward?
No, they don't.
And it sounds like they don't. It
It's
sounds
an
like...
individual, how much you want to investigate. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark,
I'd like
would you like to respond to that?
I'd like to respond to that. I believe it's accurate that my opponent does not deliberate with her colleagues. I have spoken to all the other members of the Governor's Council. We've had very positive discussions. I know for a fact that they do deliberate. They do talk with each other. And as your Governor's Counselor, I would be part of that conversation. I also think that the conversation that you have with the nominee is very important because it isn't just vetting and voting yes or no. It's also sharing with them what I have learned in my work as a public defender to make sure that they understand. And that's part of the work that I very much want to do.
Thank you so much. We have to stop now. I'm so sorry. But there's time to come up afterwards because the library will need us to leave here in about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Now we have time for closing comments because Mara started this. She goes first, and then Marilyn gets her 3 minutes at the end.
The choice is clear. In my 17 years, can you hear me now? Maybe I'll just hold this. There, is that better? The choice is clear. In my 17 years of working in our courts, I have seen enough, and I have had enough. And that's why I'm running to be your Governor's Counselor. It's time for change. We need to elect the first public defender to the Governor's Council. So to bring balance and badly needed perspective, we need a Governor's Counselor who will communicate effectively across all platforms to inform the people of this district about the work of the Governor's Council and the issues at stake, and someone who will listen to them and really understand their concerns. The woman who talked about our probate and family courts, I was taking notes. I will continue to do that because I do want to listen and learn. It's been a long time since the Cellucci administration, which is when the incumbent was first elected. And in those 25 years since, she has made her priorities clear, and they are not the progressive values of our district. She has not properly vetted nominees. All of the problems that I have been talking about in our courts have been perpetuated by people she has been voting for 25 years. It is time for change. With your vote in the primary on or before September 3rd, We will elect the first public defender to the Governor's Council. We will have a new progressive voice to champion the causes that we believe in: juvenile justice reform, unfailing support for reproductive rights, ending systemic racism in our courts, more restorative justice, and the end of overly harsh, counterproductive sentencing. We will have a new era of openness, of transparency, because I will not only communicate better and more effectively, I will be much more available to listen to your concerns. It's time for change, and with your support and your vote, we will have the change we need on the Governor's Council. I'm Mara Dolan, and I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mara. Marilyn, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councilor Juvenville was a public defender, and I do want to give him credit. Okay, you can time me now. My entire career has been about reform. I promised change when I ran for Governor's Council, and I delivered. As I have said, I am the only full-time member, the only one who vets and meets with every single nominee, as many I have met over 1,000, from the Supreme Judicial Court to the Industrial Accident Board. There are no minor nominations. Every one of them makes decisions that impact people's lives. In 25 years, as I said, I've been absent once when my husband died. I am especially proud to have voted for many historic firsts that reshaped our Supreme Judicial Court to reflect the people of Massachusetts. The first black male Chief Justice, the first Jewish Chief Justice, the first black woman Chief Justice, the first openly LGBT justice, a woman, first black woman justice member, and the first Asian justice, a woman. We cannot go back to the bad days before my reforms, when decisions were made behind closed doors, like when a judicial nominee did not disclose a family member was on the Governor's Council, or when nominees could donate to the councils up to the moment of the hearing. Because of Governor Healy, I have never been more enthusiastic to serve you. Finally, we have a governor who's not afraid to use her power for pardons, commutations, right wrongs, and free people who do not belong in prison. There are inmates who are victims of racial prejudice during their trial and sentencing. I want to continue to go to the prisons, advocate on behalf of them. They deserve to be released, and for pardons. SEIU, NAGE endorsed me, and in their endorsement they said, Councilor Devaney has long supported NAGE and the members of the Governor's Council, and has been a strong ally to the labor movement in Massachusetts and working families across Massachusetts and Commonwealth. My opponent claims she's a lifetime Democrat. Not true. In the 2000 Republican primary, she claims she never voted for a pro-life judge, but she voted for a pro-life Republican in the 2000 election. She claims she's a public defender, but she failed to report that in her income from the state ethics. And she was sanctioned and fined by a federal judge for bringing a lawsuit against 2 police officers with false claims of racism without any evidence at all, violated federal court orders, and pursued this case even though she had no proof at all. In contrast, I don't need to exaggerate. I have a real record of success and justice reform. I ask the people in the audience today, please judge me on my record of accomplishment. It is not always popular to do the right thing for honesty, accountability, and transparency, but it has always been worth it. People's rights are too important for anything less, and I respectfully ask for your vote September 3rd.
May I rebut?
Thank you for your past
May I
results.
rebut?
We can't really, at this point, I'm sorry.
It's not true, that's all. Thank you.
I mean, I think we have plenty of time to talk with Mara individually afterwards. I want to thank, first of all, everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for spending your time here with us, to listening to these candidates. I want to thank Marilyn, I want to thank Mara for their courage in discussing these difficult issues with us, and their forthrightness, and I'm deeply impressed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
By the presence. So let's give them a big round of applause, right? So thank you all. Have a lovely evening, and thank you, Minuteman Media Network.
And I'm here if anyone wants to ask me any questions. I'm here.